So I think that I have to remember who a school's for. That for me is a very fundamental thing in what I do. Who is a school for? It's not for a head teacher. It's not for the teachers or the adults who are paid to be there. It's for the pupils.
Well, of course, we try and look at where the trouble is coming from, why the child is angry. But we can't legislate against bad housing and poverty that's out there at the end of our street. We've got to take each child into this school and give them the very best access to the curriculum that we can possibly give.
We're dealing with what amounts to precious cargo, aren't we? A lot of these children come into schools with difficulties and disadvantages, low aspirations, and what we've got to do as schools is to ensure that they're given the opportunity to fulfil their dreams. There are adults up and down the country who've been told when they were younger by teachers somewhere along the line that they won't be able to do something. What we've got to move to, and move to it fairly quickly, is a culture of you can.
I started teaching in 1972, and when I began, I was very well aware, because I taught in a city school and it was quite a tough school, and I was very aware that children actually do want to learn. They don't always fit into classrooms very well, and they don't quite know how to put themselves into a classroom very well. And learning is all about everything, you know, and behaviour is what we do.
I think it starts with the core belief that everybody matters. And every child, every adult who's involved in the school situation needs to know that they have a value to the school, and they must be made aware of that. And it's about basic principles in terms of creating an ethos of support and care and trust for everybody right the way through the organisation, and that leads to ensuring that some basic principles are put in place in terms of common standards of uniform, attendance, punctuality. But then, on top of that, the children are entitled to know that the people who are in front of them know their job, are able to do it efficiently, and can engage with them.
If I exclude you from mainstream, and I tell you don't belong anymore in the mainstream, then those really powerful feelings that every human being has in their spirit of needing to belong to something get channeled in a negative way instead of a positive way. So I will go and join a gang, a group of people who will say, come and join us, you belong with us. And if the raison d'etre for that group is to say to society, you've rejected me, so I'm going to hurt you for doing that, then we have a society where we all say, how did that happen?
But it's about creating within them, first of all, the identity with the school. And that can be achieved through simple basic things such as uniform, attention to detail, and allowing the children to see that you do care about them, that you are able to spend time with them, that you are prepared to encourage them and motivate them. And schools spend a lot of time dealing with the rotten end of the business in terms of sanctions, and the emphasis really ought to be on the positive side of things, because children do thrive on praise, children do thrive on being told that they're doing a good job, and quite often children who come into school with low aspirations need constant reassurance that the things that they're doing are the things that will lead to success for them.
These children do not behave in this way for fun. They do it for a reason. And if you can get to the reason and then say, well, let's see if you could tackle that situation in a different way. Let's look at how you would tackle that particular situation in another way. So you get a very angry child, for example, and angry children are not naughty, they're just angry. It's just who they are. But anger is a very powerful tool, and I always say to them, you know, think of people like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi or Martin Luther King. There were three very angry people. Thank God for them, they changed the world. But they use their anger in a very positive way. It's not anger that's wrong, it's what you do with it.
Because if you create a structure for the children to be successful in, then eventually what you create is an environment that is a good place to work in. And that's characterised by people who walk around with smiles on their faces. Successful schools are schools where children and staff are happy to be with each other.
Because for me, inclusion is not some poor hapless teacher standing in front of 30 pupils, 5 of whom are knife-wielding and drug-dealing, and 5 of whom are elective mutes because they don't want to be there, and 20 of whom want to learn. I mean, it's not inclusion, that's stupidity, isn't it?
A child needs to have confidence, but it needs to be competent within that confidence. It's no good playing the educational con trick of saying, yes, you can do this, when the child knows full well it can't. It needs to have that confidence boosted by other people, recognising the child's achievement. And that can be through achievement books, through stars, through ticks, through whatever system you've got going. But the child needs to know that it is doing well and that it has got a potential to do even better.
The most important thing is to try to get across to everybody I meet who's involved in education the need for them to see beyond the behaviour. And so for me, learning support units, when I first came to the DfES and was having a look around the country, fell into two camps. There were either those that were really trying to address the needs of the children, and there were those which were nothing more than what people call sin bins, and they were dumping grounds. So in certain parts of the country you would find places where children were put into rooms, where they were put into little booths. You know, they had a desk and a booth and a blank wall, and people sent work down and they were supposed to do their work. And that to me is not addressing their behavioural needs at all.
I think the actual curriculum competes against the child succeeding. We don't get the pace right. We sometimes have too much rote learning, or it's too challenging, and there the child will get frustrated, and this is where the poor behaviour arises again. The child has got to see its success.
For me, it's about putting in place procedures, policies, practices that make it crystal clear to the staff what the expectations are of the children. Because if you create a structure for the children to be successful in, then eventually what you create is an environment that is a good place to work in.
So what I try and do now is to go around and speak to people and have a look at some of the best practices that are going on, and there are some absolutely mind-blowing practices going on around this country for inclusion. So it's taking those places and showing other people how it can be done, and it's saying let's have a look and see how we can educate not just the children but also the adults. So in the very best learning support units in the country, we have not just children going there and being taught, but we have newly qualified staff or new staff to the school being tabled to work alongside the very experienced staff who run them, so that they can learn the positive behaviour management techniques needed to support those children when they go back into their own classroom.
High expectations are totally essential. If you don't have high expectations of the child, then you're not going to get very far at all, because so many children do not believe in themselves. Nobody in life has given them any belief that they're doing anything that is good or positive.
And the other big thing for us in learning support units is to say it's a revolving door. The child belongs in a mainstream class. That's where they really should be. They don't fit in there at the moment. So we put them into the learning support unit. They have a placement in the learning support unit for a limited period of time. But where they're successful, they should be in their class. So they maybe only come out for parts of the day or parts of the week. And they then, in the learning support unit, address their needs as well as look at their literacy and their numeracy and their oracy skills. I think an awful lot of problems occur because people can't voice how they feel. So it's addressing those very basic things of oracy, literacy, numeracy, but also the social, emotional and behavioural skills they need. And then they can go back into class with a reintegration package. And the reintegration package means that I will not treat you the way I did before necessarily, because I'm going to give you the chance to prove that you can do it in a different way. And that's where we're trying hard to say an inclusive school is one that says, yes, you belong in this school and your place is perhaps there for the moment, just like that child belongs there. So it doesn't matter that you're in a different area of the school. It doesn't matter that you're in a specialist room. It doesn't matter that, you know, I have to be in a different room from you, and you can be with a group of people who are all very academic, and I might be with a group of people who are all very practically minded. That's good.
Quite often, schools where children are happy to be are those schools where children are sat in the computer room at 7:30 in the morning, making demands of teachers, making demands of learning mentors, and again, at the end of the day, engaging with the school in terms of study support opportunities, representing the school at football, involvement in drama productions and musical productions. All those sorts of things go towards making a successful school and demonstrate clearly the way in which children build up an identity with the school, where they can see that the school cares about them.
I think that behaviour is the bedrock upon which schools are founded. And for too long we have seen behaviour as a luxury. a lot of our parents didn't have a very good experience of school either. And so they inappropriately support their children. And they'll say to them, don't you worry, love. Them teachers get at you. I'll get down there. I'll sort them out for you. And therefore they're being inappropriate, really, for their child. And what we want to do is to say our inclusion room is a place where everybody's welcome. So I think that you can make a school a very just place by actually recognising that young people have that sense of justice, and just because they're young and because they're inexperienced doesn't mean they don't know right from wrong, and that they don't know the right way to be treated or the right way to treat other people. That doesn't mean to say they always do it, but their opinions and views should be taken into consideration. And we should look at them and say, when we're developing our school policies, they're not just dusty things that belong in a filing cabinet. They're living documents that should affect everything that happens in the school. First of all, I would say if you're going to be an inclusive school, as a whole staff, that's every single member adult who works in the school, has to buy into it. So they have to understand it. So the first thing is understanding what inclusion is. And I think that takes time, and I think it has to be done carefully and sensitively. Once you've got the understanding of what inclusiveness is, you then have to say, how do I teach every adult in this school the skills that they need to be able to cope with the emotional baggage that children bring with them? You know, there's a spiritual side to every human being, and I don't mean by that a religious side. I mean there is a spirit. When I worked in the Prue, I had a really tough lad, and I couldn't get through to him at all. And in fact, he'd burnt down a garage, I think, and stolen a lot of money. So he was a bit of a frightening character in many ways. And I didn't know how to get through to him. And then one day I noticed a ring on his finger, and I said, "Does that ring symbolise Muhammad, peace be upon him?" And his face changed, and we were able to have some kind of a conversation. Now, that's somebody who had a faith, and by tapping into that, he recognised something in me that recognised something in him. But it isn't just to do with religion, and it isn't to do with faith. It's to do with touching the spiritual side of every human being. There is a physical side, there is the thinking side, but the spiritual side is the bit that says, what is this word love? What does it mean? Is it, where does it come from? How can I tap into it? Why is it something that's such a powerful emotion? And how can I fit into this big place called school and still feel that I belong here, and that belonging is concerned with what the real meaning of love is? So if you can get at the spiritual side of a school, then I think you've cracked it.